What's up, guys? Stephen Bogrand here from Pro Physique. Today, what I want to talk about is I want to quit. So hey guys, I hope everybody's having a great week so far. This is something that sort of came up to me today, and obviously working with people on a regular basis, you always have things come up that kind of spark your mind that you want to talk about, and today was one of those things. And I had a client who's in prep, probably maybe halfway through, a little bit longer of prep, and we needed a longer prep, and the client emails me today, tells me, I think that it's time for me to quit. And I think that for me, I see that and I'm like it hits me, right? Because the first thing to do is to say, all right, well, what did I do wrong? How do I better help this person? And obviously that wasn't the case. The client went on to talk a little bit more in depth about how prep it's kind of become this overwhelming thing in their life. It's no longer positive. It's no longer just a challenge. It's no longer something that they're enjoying doing as, to make them better. It's becoming a big negative impact to their lives. It's negatively affecting their work. It's negatively affecting their relationships. It's negatively affecting their social life. And when I heard that, I completely understood all of a sudden. I now get it. Now, that is a very hard decision to make. It makes a lot of balls because, we invest a lot in terms of what we put into a prep. And it's not just the money we put into the coaching, right? It's the money we put into the gym, the supplementation, paying for the show. And that's all not even considering day of the show, right? So that's just in preparation. And so for me, when I see that, I have a lot of respect for that decision because competing isn't for everybody. And for some people, competing just isn't for now, right? Maybe right now competing's not a good idea. And I think that it takes a lot of guts to be able to really be objective with yourself and say, hey, I did the cost-benefit analysis and it's just kind of not worth it for me right now. You know what I mean? It's not that I can't do this. It's not that... it's so hard to where I'm unable. I can do this, but it's negatively affecting my relationship, and that person is very important to me. It's negatively affecting my relationship with my family and how I interact with them, and they're more important to me than that. It's negatively impacting my friendships and my work, right? And those things, work obviously has to come before competing because the bills got to get paid. And so being able to understand that is very wise, it's very mature, and it is a decision that probably a lot more people should be able to make or need to make in terms of competing, because what I've seen on time and time again is people who decide to compete and then that becomes their number one. And so this kind of goes to my last video when I talk about priorities, right? I talk about priorities in school being a priority, and that was how I ran everything. Prep will never be my number one priority. Prep is a priority. Yes, it is important. It's up here, but it's never going to be my number one. Right now, and for as long as I can tell, my number one priority will always be my clients. It will always be my athletes and the people that I work for. Because they are the basis that everything else is built on. I cannot pay my bills without them. I cannot prep without them. I cannot coach without them. And I love coaching. I love my job. So that is my priority, right? They're my number one. School is still in front of prep, right? I'm on that very last little bit, right? We're in the last semester of my graduate degree. School is more important than prep. If prep is what's negatively affecting school, prep will be gone out the window. And that's just the end of it, right? Thankfully, I've been able to manage things well. And that goes into the next one, is that my family, again, more important than prep, right? If something comes up and there's a family issue and they need me, and I'm in prep, well, guess who's most likely not going to be in prep anymore? Life happens. People, for me, will always be a priority. So I'm not worried about prep over those things. Thankfully, I've prepped enough, and this is probably my best prep yet in terms of overall mood state. I haven't really been anywhere near as grumpy or as irritable as prior preps in prior years. And so I've been able to manage those things well. But those are important things that we need to take into account even before we start prep, to make sure that we're paying attention to those things that are important to us and that we're taking care of them accordingly throughout prep. And so I think that this is one of those cases where saying, hey coach, I think we need to pull the plug on prep, was a very good idea. Another good idea when to pull the plug on prep is say, coach, I just haven't been able to be adherent, right? I haven't been able to hit my macros. I haven't been able to make things happen. And I think that this is when a lot of people will say, suck it up, buttercup, like deal with it, like prep's not supposed to be easy. And there's definitely some truth to that. But there is also some truth to the fact that if you're unable to do that, if you're unable to push through those hard times to get to where you need to be on stage, it might not be a good time for you to be prepping. There might just be a lot of other things going on in life. There might be a lot going on within yourself, psychologically and emotionally, that are causing that lack of adherence or that inability to push through that hunger. Because in prep, you're going to be hungry a lot of the time. And sometimes it's important to be able to take a step back to look at your current situation and say, hey, I don't have the ability to do this. If I can't stick to my goals in terms of nutrients, what I need to be bringing in and what I need to be doing for exercise and cardio, maybe this just isn't for me. And for some people, they have that harder than others. Let's be very honest. Some people who have competed before, who have come out of it, who have a difficult dieting history, who have in the past had to be very, very low calorie and extremely high cardio to get ready for stage. They have the deck sort of stacked against them a little bit more, right? So it's important to understand exactly what it's going to entail for you to get on stage. If you had to really blast it last time you got on stage and you didn't feel like you were quite lean enough and the judges told you weren't quite lean enough, that means we're going to have to go even harder most likely this time, unless you've taken a extremely long off season. It took me about 2 years and I still had to go pretty hard to get to where I am right now at 7 weeks out. So keep that in mind. Remember, realistic expectations are important, and being objective with yourself about where you're at in the process is important, right? So we've talked about some of the things, like when I think that maybe pulling the plug on prep is a good idea, right? Let's talk about when pulling the plug on prep, I think, is maybe not the best idea. And it's not that it's not the best idea, but it's unnecessary. You don't need to pull the plug on prep. One of the big things that I see in terms of people pulling the plug on prep and just sort of calling it off is just when it gets difficult, right? When it becomes one of those things that has to now become a priority over other things. The big one that I see is social and drinking, right? And it's not that you can't drink during prep, but as you get deeper into prep, as calories get lower, that should become more and more low on the totem pole, right? Because fitting in a drink into your prep and into your diet, it doesn't do you any good, right? If anything, it just leaves you hungry. Not to mention, when you have one drink, you're a little bit more likely to have another drink. And then when you have 2 drinks, you're a little bit more likely to have a 3rd drink, right? That's just sort of how it goes. And so I think the big one that I see is the social life. And the social life becoming, because we here in America and in many other places in the world, social gatherings, social life, it's about drinking and food. And so it's really easy to pick and to eat and to nibble. When you go out to eat, everything's very calorie dense. Alcohol is very calorie dense. So I think that this is probably the one that I see the most, where I'm like, look, you need to buckle up, okay? And I think a little bit of tough love goes pretty far here. But saying, it's time for you to decide what the priority is, right? Like, you've invested in this prep. You've put money down, right? You've put time into it. Let's make this more important than going out drinking with the friends. It's not that you can't spend time with your friends. It's just that you have to be like selective, and you have to be wise about what you're choosing to put yourself around. For me, it doesn't bother me to go out to and watch my friends eat or drink. I've been around that enough. I've done this enough times to where I can go out with them. And I'm not really super tempted. Like, there's a little bit, yeah, but it's nothing crazy, and I can keep it in control. I can still be on target with my macros. But for a lot of people, they cannot do that, which means maybe something like going out to eat or the restaurant's not a good idea. But getting your friends together, maybe to go out to do something active, go to the dog park, go on a kayaking trip or something like that, maybe that's a better option, you know what I mean? So a little bit of foresight goes a long way. And I think that that's probably my number one that I see as the issue of let's cut prep when we don't need to cut prep. So moral of the story, priorities matter. Once again, priorities matter. But there are definitely some times when it is appropriate to say, I want to quit. Anyways, guys, I'm going to leave it right there. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Hopefully that helps some people out and encourages some other people about where that priority of prep is to make sure that they're getting stuff done. Remember, you don't have to quit. You can push through and you can make it happen. Anyways, guys, I will talk to you soon.